Clank the Flying Rat was spawned in the beginning of time. He always was, and he always has been here, waiting and watching in the dark. Clank is a rat of all-knowing. He knows your deepest secrets. He is the Santa Claus of rats. In the early days of humanity, Clank was worshipped by many civilizations, such as ancient Egyptians, where he could be found depicted in hieroglyphics. Furthermore, he has his own year in the Chinese New Year calendar, the Year of the Rat. Clank was next seen in the mid-1300s, leading armies of rats to infect millions with the bubonic plague. He was the Rat King. Clank can even be found starring in A Clowny with a Chance of Meatballs, a pure cinematographic masterpiece. Throughout the years, even when he wasn't a prominent figure in society, he was still pulling the strings in the background by influencing some of the most influential people throughout history. Clank has influenced a great number of philosophers, ranging from Aristotle to Descartes, from Patrick Henry to Kanye.
We asked 3 random people what they think about the philosopher Clank the Rat and his influence. Here are their stories.
Am I just talking about Clank? Yeah. Clank is the most masterful ever. Like, he's a genius. He is my inspiration for everything. And I love him.
Clank is God. Clank is love and life. I started following the Clank religion when I was about 6 years old. My family wasn't really Clank religious, but I joined up with the church after some parishioners came to my door and told me that I would die without Clank. And I realized that, yes, I would die without Clank. So I started going to Clank Church, and I realized that Clank actually is God. And, yeah.
I love him. I want him to sleep beside me on my nightstand.
One day in ancient Greece, Clank was chilling about when who should walk by but Aristotle. Aristotle saw Clank, an abomination with the body of a rat and the wings of a pigeon. He's a disgrace, thought Aristotle, and because he was very drunk at the time, Aristotle reasoned that he must have been hallucinating. When Aristotle woke up the next morning, he began to write in a frenzy, describing a philosophy that each species has its own natural patterns.
Sometime after all this happened, Clank made a visit to a man named Descartes. At the time, Descartes was having a mental breakdown trying to figure out if he existed or not. Clank, like the all-seeing, all-knowing God that he is, knew that Descartes did not exist. Clank told him as much via flying up to him and whispering in his ear. Descartes, unfortunately, was a stubborn spirit of a non-existences and concluded that he did exist because he was thinking.
Many years later, after Clank had made his way to the New World, he found a young radical man named Patrick Henry. Clank took a liking to Patrick and began to whisper words of revolution and insurrection to Patrick Henry. With Clank's influence, Patrick Henry realized his talents and became a great orator. With Clank by his side, Patrick Henry fought for America's freedom from Britain and became the greatest of the founding fathers.
One of the more recent examples of Clank's influences on the lowly human population can be found in Kanye West. Clank never liked Kanye and found it irritating that Kanye thought his music was better than Clank's holy screeches. So one day, when Kanye was being especially irritating, preaching about becoming president and releasing bad, blasphemous songs, Clank found it necessary to visit Kanye's dismal dwellings in the middle of the night to teach him a lesson. Clank fluttered down onto his bed and screeched into his ear, "I am God." Kanye woke in a cold sweat, heart racing and full of fear. He turns his head to find Clank staring at him with one of his powerful, intense eyes, although only one was actually facing Kanye. Clank left with a fierce flutter, smashing through his cement wall and left Kanye questioning his life. The next day, Kanye pronounced that he is God and no one else is, which sent Clank into a furious wrath. Clank is still plotting his revenge to this day. One day, when Kanye is least expecting it, Clank will do something terrible to that sorry excuse for a flesh bag, but Clank is in no hurry. He has all the time in the world. He is immortal. He is all-powerful, and he always was, and he always will be. Clank is God.